Hi, Mark and Alise. I want to welcome you guys to Skywalk Bible Church today, and I am very excited. We are very honored to have you here today to share with us your mission process and journey. So to start with, I know that Pastor Jim already introduced you guys to us, so we're pretty familiar with your background already. But why don't we focus on saying that when did you first get the calling from God, and how did you know that that is God's calling?
All right, I'm gonna start first.
Yeah.
Mine's more of a long-term, drawn out. So I was born and raised in a Christian home, and my parents in a small mountain town. I didn't really get outside of that small mountain town until I was in high school, and I went to Mexico on spring break to do a missions trip. It was my first introduction to missions, and I think the first trip we were laying cement. We were pouring cement and laying a foundation for a new church, and we did a lot of involvement with their youth and their kids. And so I kind of got a little itch, I guess, to missions, and ended up going on those short-term trips, like I think 2 or 3 years in high school. Every spring break, it was just kind of something that I felt like, wow, I could really make a difference. And then that carried over into my college years, and I ended up my first overseas experience was to the Philippines in 2000. What was that? 12 or 13? 2013, I think. And again, still more of a working thing, but also a little bit more relational of just kind of being with the people. And so yeah, I would say that my experience was a little bit more long term. When I moved up here to the Bay Area, I kind of felt more of a solidified call to long term, and I'll share about that a little bit later.
How about you, Mark?
Yeah, and for me, it was a little different. I had a little bit more of a dramatic experience. For me, I was born and raised Catholic, and then I left the church for a while and came back to evangelical, and it's kind of a long story. I won't go into that. But essentially, I was in a place in my life where I was down and depressed and not in a very good place. And I remember one week I just prayed. It was one of those prayers where I was just crying, and I gave up. I'm just like, God, I can't do this anymore. Life is so hard. I don't know what to do. I need you to help me out. I have no purpose in my life. I don't know what I'm doing. And at the time, I was going to church, and I was involved with Bible study and things like that, and I had a good job. And before that point, my mindset was always, hey, missionaries are great. I'll support them. I'll give them money, but I have no urge to go. I've traveled all over the world when I was young, and I didn't care. I mean, not that I didn't care, but I just didn't want to go to missions. And so I cried, and I had that really hard prayer, and then I got up and I forgot about it. The following week, I was here at Crosswalk, and I was watching, we had a missionary speaker, and he was showing these pictures on the screen of just these different kids in other countries that were poor and starving and didn't know anything about Jesus. And while he was showing those pictures, I remember looking up at the screen and just thinking, actually, I wasn't even thinking, I just had this sudden urge, this conviction that I needed to be there, that's where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be helping those kids. And honestly, I was kind of like, what the heck's going on? I mean, I was scared. I wanted to get up and run out of church. I didn't know what to do.
Wow.
And so I went and talked to one of the pastors here, and afterwards, and he was like, wow, you've been called to missions. I'm like, oh, okay. And he's like, well, let's get you going. Where do you want to go? We're going to get you on a bus. And I'm just like, wow. Well, that's a little gung-ho for me. But I said, okay, well, we prayed about it. I said, I don't really know. God hasn't really told me where, and God hasn't told me when. So I'll wait a little bit and pray about it. And but that was, I think, the first thing was I took that first step, that prayer of like, God, I give up. I can't do this anymore. I give it into you. And looking back on it, that was definitely the response to that just overwhelming urge. It felt like even that time in church, every excuse I was throwing out, I was like, I can't go to missions. I'm I have a great job. I'm making good money. I have my parents live here, and I can't go anywhere else. And I love the Bay Area. And yet, what I felt back was just this: it doesn't matter. Those things are okay. You can let go. You can let go. Those things don't matter. And so that's when I think I changed my life. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So it sounds like at least yours is more like a gradual experience with God through all of your missions experience in the past, right? Well, Mark is like a very dramatic, sudden calling. It's almost like striking to you. And that's amazing. So it sounded like, at least yours started like a little bit earlier in your life, and Mark is a little bit later while you're already like working. And actually, it's like a different time of your life, right? So when did you guys meet? Do you meet before or after you start your mission journey?
So we kind of met before. I mean, we knew each other. We met here at Crosswalk Community Church. So when I moved up here to go to San Jose State, I met Mark at a Bible study, and we were friends for a while. And then I had this desire to go, or felt called by God to go to Paraguay for a missions trip during my winter break. And Angel Malia Hernandez, I don't know if you know them, they had just moved to Paraguay to be missionaries, and we wanted to just go support them in their transition. And then all of a sudden, this guy over here is saying, well, can I come? I want to go too. So we ended up going to Paraguay, and in the process of getting to know each other through that and preparing for the trip, because we spent a lot of time together. So during our conversations, we decided that, during our trip, we decided we wanted to date when we came back. And then while we were dating, once we got back here, in a conversation, when I realized that my calling to long-term missions that I mentioned earlier happened the same day, the same sermon, the same church as Mark's calling. So I was sitting in Crosswalk Community Church as well when the guest speaker came for that had his dramatic calling, and I had the same calling and the same urge to change from a short-term mentality to a long-term, I could see myself living overseas. So that kind of solidified, like, well, now we have to get married because God's clearly called us to do long-term missions together.
That is amazing. Mark, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, as far as just the figuring out the missions thing.
Yeah.
It was definitely, at that point, it worked out well because she ended up getting a job. Once we got married, she got a job down at Vanguard University in Southern California. And so I was able to go and get my master's there while she was working there. So that actually worked out well.
That's amazing.
And that was, part of it for me was, it was that time of waiting. And like I said, I didn't really feel a place or a time. So what I did was I started going back to school. I think that was my first initial response was, man, my Bible knowledge isn't up to par. It's not that good. I'm going to go back to school and start learning more. And so that's what really drove me to go to university.
Great. And then, so since you're talking about like going back to school, why don't you teach us here? Because I think a lot of us here, we heard about mission, we are interested, right? But to us, it's like a very vague concept. Maybe you can just share with us your understanding about the concept of mission and the mission calling.
For us, I think it's simple, and I thought a lot about this. I can get into some really detailed stuff, but what I'm going to do is...
In layman terms.
Yeah. I think what really solidified it for me, the initial time, was I was reading and thinking, what am I supposed to do as a Christian? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And so what I did was I read Acts, and I was reading Acts. And I love Acts. It's my favorite book in the Bible. And I was reading the beginning of Acts in Acts 1:8, and it's funny. It's because Acts 1:8 is what Jesus says to us just before he leaves. And it's funny because now I think about it and I go, just before I leave and I go on a trip and I'm not gonna see my wife for a while or my kids, what do I want to tell them? I'm gonna tell them, okay, kids, don't forget, listen to your mom, do all these things. I love you, right? And I want to make sure they know that. That's the last thing, that's the most important things to me are the last things I say before I leave. And I really was like reading the scripture and going, gosh, I wonder what was in Jesus' heart right before he left to say, and in Acts 1:8, what he says is, and the power of the Holy Spirit will come upon you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria and throughout the world. And I sat there and go, that's God's way of really telling us how much he loves us. And not just us, but the world, that he wants this message to be shared.
Yes.
And that's what he wants us to do, is to go out there and share that. And it really touched me because that's what he wants the world to know him. But he's giving us that opportunity he's giving us the opportunity to share that, to be a part of that. Because he could very easily make everyone believe. But he doesn't. He gives everyone the choice, and he gives us a part in that, and in helping people. And that really affected me, I think, when I really started reading Acts that time. And since then, that's the basis. That's the simplest, I think, way to explain where we are as far as missions. It's partly obedience, but it's partly also our heart goes out to people that don't know him. And we want to be able to share that. We want people to know that they are loved. I think that's one of the biggest themes I see among people that don't know Christ, even some people that do know Christ, but they don't know that they're loved. It's not part of their identity.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
How about you, Alise?
Yeah, I think, Mark and I really focus on living it out and meeting people. I think the other philosophy that we've kind of come to adopt is there's some great organizations out there, and there's a lot that just, they do a lot of things for people. But I think we struggle with, we want to help people also tangibly, right? Like, I feel like if you're trying to share God's love and God's word to someone who's starving, who's sitting there with an empty stomach, and I'm trying to tell them and make them believe that God loves them, I don't know that that's really the best approach. And so I think a lot of what we're kind of looking at and feeling in our missions call is some holistic, right? Like meeting people at the base level of their tangible needs and showing Jesus through that. I think in our experience, we've struggled with that. I'm going to tell you a particular story, and maybe you want to share. Why don't you share yours first? Yeah.
Okay. So on our mission trip to Paraguay, at that time I didn't really have a clear understanding of what missions was. But in my job before, I was very, very task oriented. I'm very much like, okay, get this done, get that done, get the next thing done. And when we went out to Paraguay, I was walking around and going, gosh, and we were kind of laid back and just talking to people and spending time with people. Yeah. And I go, how come we're not helping these people? These people are poor. Let's do something. And I went to the church and I was just like, you got to give me something to do. I got to help out. I got to help you guys do something. Give me some job. And they were like looking at me like, okay. And I had this need inside myself to do this task. And so they said, okay, well, we have some chairs that need to be fixed. You can go do those chairs. So they set me up, and this is Paraguay, which is in South America. It's very hot. It was probably over 100 degrees, and it was humid. And they stuck me on the second floor of this storage room, the room was made out of concrete, and it was hot. And I'm by myself, and there's all these wooden chairs, and I'm hammering the chairs back together. And at first I was happy. Here I am. I'm helping these people, and I'm really doing good here. And then I realized, wait a second, they can do this themselves. And I didn't fly all this way and spend all this money to sit here and just fix their chairs. What is that accomplishing? And the other thing is, they're not even up here with me. I'm doing this by myself. And I realized, man, I got this thing all wrong. I am not here to be task-oriented. I am not here to just check off a box and say, oh, I helped those poor people. I'm not doing anything by not sharing God with them. And I think that really changed a lot of my ideals about what missions really is. I mean, it is to help people in a tangible, physical way, but that's not all that it is.
Yeah, I think I also had a very similar realization. So I led a team in 2008 to the Philippines. There was 5 of us, I think, on that team. And we had a few things planned. We were gonna go to a school and kind of do a little thing with the kids there, and we were gonna do some street ministry opportunities and have even a small pastors conference. And the pastors conference, kind of fizzled a little. We did it a little bit, but then the street, we ended up doing the street ministry, and I think we had this idea in our mind that we're just going to go out there and, thousands of people are going to come and they're going to hear us and they're all going to be saved and God's totally going to use us and we're just going to save a lot of lives, right? Like that was our dream, right? We go halfway around the world. We want to make a difference. And we ended up going to this little village and, gosh, I don't even know if 100 people showed up. It was pretty small.
There was a lot of people.
Well, once you start the music, then they all kind of start flowing in, right? So we preached and we did some songs and we did some stuff with the kids, but it kind of felt like it was just us performing.
Well, and we had a. It wasn't so much that, but I mean, we had an altar call at the end,
Yeah.
and then we think, oh yeah, all missionaries supposed to have an altar call at the end, so we called everyone up, and a lot of people came up, but no one wanted to give their life to Jesus. They all just wanted prayer.
Right.
And so I think we were a little bit disappointed in that.
Yeah, so then we were like, okay, well, at least we prayed for them, and we were getting ready to basically leave on our trip, and we happened to be at the airport with this other missions group who we met on the way in. They were this big group of like young people, and we were talking to them like, so how was your experience? How did it go? And they just, oh yeah, we baptized like
1,000 people.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a huge number, right? Like, oh my gosh, it was just amazing, and God was totally working, and I think we went down to the ocean and baptized I think it was close to 1,000 people, and we were just like, wow, like that's amazing, that's really cool, but we felt like failures, right? Like we're sitting there in this airport thinking, gosh, we came all the way over here, and what did we do? Like, what difference did we really make? Here's these people, and they made this huge impact clearly, and I don't know what we did. And so I think we left with this sense of, okay, God, like we know you brought us here, and you're just going to have to do something with what we did, right? Like we're leaving, we're on our way out. And about a year later.
Hold on. One big part of that story is what our focus was connecting the people in that village to another church. We were there as guests of another church. That was a Filipino church. And they were the ones that brought us to this barangay. They were the ones that really set everything up, and we were focused on bringing people in and connecting them to the church.
Right.
Whereas the other group went in, and they made this big, huge show, but they had no church they were connected to.
Yeah, that's true. So about a year later, I got an email from this pastor who we were connected with. Thanks for filling in that gap. And he said, there's a revival in our community. Everybody here is saved. Everybody is on fire for Jesus. There are people being healed on the streets. Like, it was just this overwhelming, like, God is super powerful. And it started with that one little evening that we did where we felt like we didn't make an impact. But that church was able to then follow up with all of those people who gave their information, and God moved, and he is continuing to move. And I think for us, our mindset shifted from, we're going to save a bunch of people. We're going to save the world. It's all about us, right? And God's using us, versus our mindset shifted to God is already there. He's already doing his work. He doesn't need us to do it, but he is inviting us to do it. And so it doesn't really matter what we do. It's not a performance thing. It's just our willingness to go and allow him to we just do what he wants us to do, whether it's saying hi to a little kid on the street or putting a little butterfly on their face or praying for somebody who is hurting. He's already doing it, and we just have to be faithful in even the small things.
That is an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. So it's almost like you go from like a more task-oriented mind and go there to do some job versus this is just God's ministry. I'm just part of it. And it's God's giving us the opportunity to actually be part of his ministry instead of I am actually sacrificing my time or putting things up for God, right? So it's more not like self-benefit, but more just like looking at his like global kingdom. That's amazing. And I'm pretty sure that the experience definitely reinforced your belief, right? This is the right path that God wants you to do. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely, I think it helped guide us in our philosophy more, right? Because
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, God has invited us to be a part of this, and he's confirming that in different things that we've been doing.
Yeah.
And whether it looks big or whether it looks small, he's doing the work.
Great, wonderful. Well, we talk a lot about the mission like concept in general. Why don't we talk about your personal journey? I know that going through like being from a short-term to long-term mission, and also going from like a full-time job to like changing gear into like really doing God's work, serving God. There must be a process, and also there must be like a real journey that you have to go through, right? Because in reality, there's a lot of difficulties I can assume that you must have gone through. Do you mind share with us?
Yeah, there's a lot of process.
Yeah.
And touch. I think the toughest thing for me has been the internal process of what God is doing within me. Like she was saying about the Philippines, it's been tough to try to balance our mindset of an overall kingdom mindset, and also to balance life. It felt like at first for a while there was this life over here at job, and then there was the Christian life on Sundays, and it was tough to meld the two. And I know that there was a time, I have one story in particular. Back when I was still working in the secular world, I used to work in transportation, and there was one night where the guy that worked the swing shift called in sick, so it was my responsibility to fill in. So I had already worked an 11-hour day, and I was going to have to work probably another 6. And I was grumpy, and I was all by myself at night, and I wasn't in a good mood. And then I remember this girl called up, I called this girl to track some freight that we had. And I remember my first call, and I called her on the phone, and she was being very rude to me. And I was sitting there going, oh, and I was sitting there, and I was mad. And so we hung up, and I knew I had to call her back. And she was supposed to check up on something for me and call me back, and she didn't call me back. And I'm like, I'm gonna have to call this girl back. And I was so mad because I was already in a bad mood, but I really didn't want to talk to her. So, but then as I waited for a minute, I said, okay, I'm too mad, I need to pause. So I went and I sat down and I prayed for a little bit. And I remembered that what my scripture that I read that week was, it was the love your enemy. And I go, okay, in this moment, that girl's my enemy. And I am going to take a different approach. So I called her back, and of course, she's the one that answered, and I'm like, oh, okay. And so she started to give me attitude again. And I'm like, okay. So I just paused for a minute. I said, are you okay? And she's quiet. She's like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, I just want to make sure you're okay. Are you all right? Because I'm calling you and asking you I'm not asking you to do anything out of the ordinary. This is pretty much what you do. And I feel like you have something going on that you're not happy and you're taking out on me. And there's just silence. And she starts crying. And she says, I'm so sorry. She says, I tried to kill myself this morning. And she says, for the last few years, I've been on drugs, and I'm trying to get off, and my boyfriend broke up with me, and I don't feel loved, and I just want to die. And I'm like, wow. So we started talking, and I just listened for a long time. I just listened to her. And she lives in Indiana, found out she lives in Indiana, and we ended up even connecting on Facebook, and we were sending emails back and forth after we talked for a while, and I talked to her about church. And I remember her saying, I said, I don't know where your heart is with God or what your beliefs are. I said, but, God really loves you. And maybe church would be a good place for you to start out, to just connect with some people that are not in that same culture that you're at. And she said, I can never go back to church. She said, I've done too many wrong things in my life. And I said, she's like, I've done so much drugs, I've slept around, I've done all sorts of bad things. And I said, God sent his son to die for you. That's huge. Do you think that he's going to let you sleeping with a few people and doing some drugs stand in the way of his love for you? And she broke down in tears. And so I even went as far as trying to find her a church in Indiana. And I didn't get off work until like 3 in the morning that night. And we actually stayed in contact for a while. And we messaged back and forth on Facebook a little bit. And then after a couple months, she stopped replying to my messages. And I go, okay, it's one of those things, you talk to somebody, you kind of set the groundwork, and sometimes God's acting and sometimes he's not, and it's up to her, it's her choice, she has free will. And then, about 6 months, and I just kind of forgot about it. And about 6 months later, Alise actually brought up, she said, hey, what happened to that girl? Because we talked about it. And she goes, hey, what happened to that girl? I said, I don't know. And I looked on Facebook, and there was all these posts from people posting on her wall that says, and her name was Sarah, I'll say her name is Sarah. They said, Sarah, we miss you so much. Sarah, I can't believe you're gone. Sarah, this is so heartbreaking. And it turns out she got in a car accident and died. And I was shocked. And I think my initial reaction was, I thought, here's the thing. I don't know where she was, where her relationship was with God at the time. I don't know where her heart was. But I have to believe that if God put me in that position to talk to her that night and to have her, to talk to her that same day where she tried to commit suicide, and to put her in a position where she could talk to me and put me in that spot, and gave me that heart to share with her that she is loved. I have to believe that God did that on purpose because he knew that something else was coming along. And that was kind of another crazy moment where I realized that all I did was a very simple thing. I just took a first step there. And there was no deep theological conversation on that night. There was nothing crazy. All I did was show her how much she loved, or tell her how much she loved, and told her what God's done in my life for me. And to me, that's also going back to Acts 1:8, where it says to be a witness. And to me, sometimes I want to get in these deep theological discussions with people, and I don't know if that really, for some people that's great. But for others, just tell them, for me, it was like, just tell them what God has done in my life, what Jesus has done in my life. And as simple as that. And so that was really changed a lot of my mindset, that God's really working in the hearts of people already. He's working in the hearts of a lot of people. And all I have to do is share my little bit. And that makes all the difference. And that, I think, coming out the Philippines and that story there really solidified that for me.
And I think you're talking, about our journey. Just to give you a time frame, 12 years ago is when we had that initial call before we were together. And so it's been a 12-year journey for us thus far. And it's been a lot of patience and a lot of just eagerness to say, God, we know that we've been called. Come on, right? Like, let's move forward. And we're, we got our boxing gloves on and we're ready to go. And I think the message that we have heard was just wait. Not yet, wait. And I think we've just really been trying to be mindful about living out, right? Here and now. Okay, clearly it's not time for us to go. So what do you want us to do here, Lord? And just being real with people. But basically what solidified us to our time now as far as moving forward. So we've been going to a missions conference in San Diego. 3 years in a row we went, starting in 2014. And the first 2 years, we were going, it was kind of our retreat time, our focus time to pray, to fast, to be like, okay, God, like we've been called. We know that this is it. This is the year. And both the first 2 years, it was wait, not yet, wait. And it was kind of crushing because we really, we felt ready. We felt like it was time to go overseas, like let's make a difference in the world. And I think God just was continuing to work on us as far as like, I'm already working. You live it out right now. Like it's just not time to go yet.
I think we kept saying, God, we want to go. We're ready to be missionaries for you. Just tell us where to go. Just tell us where to go, and we're there.
Yeah. Show us where to go, because that's what it was. It's like we had no clue where he wanted us to go, but like we're ready. Let's hear it. So the third year comes. This is now 2016 in January, and we really felt like it was different. So we're really hopeful, right? Like, okay, I do feel like this is different, and so we went. And the first night,
we had our thoughts that time was going into it. We were saying, you know what? I think we're ready. I think we're just going to take that first step,
right.
And God just confirm with us that we're ready. We're ready to take that first step. We're ready to get hooked up with an organization. God, just confirm with us. We want just some confirmation or something that we're ready, that it's time.
Yeah, for sure. And so the first night, the speaker is from South Africa, and he says, some of you have been called by God to go overseas, and you're waiting for this booming voice and a cloud shaped like Ethiopia in the sky to tell you where to go. And he said, if you're willing, I don't think that God is going to be mad at you for giving up your life to go pick a country and share the love of Jesus. And so Mark and I are sitting there like, oh my gosh, he's talking to us. I mean, it was our story. It was all about everything that we had already experienced. And we just felt the Holy Spirit like fall on us and be like, are you listening? This is it, So our hearts are pounding. And there was a few other things. I don't even remember what he said, but it was like confirmation that this was the time. And so we...
I'm so sorry to interrupt. So because when you first said that the first 2 years, you don't feel like God has given you a clear picture that you are ready to go yet, right? Can you tell me, is it because you don't get this type of like message from God, or is it because you are still like not sure where to go? Can you share a little bit with us, like when you say you're not?
We were waiting for that big dramatic moment.
Okay.
We were waiting for God to be very dramatic and tell us, oh, it's time, and smack me in the head or something. I don't know.
Well, and even the feeling.
Right.
I felt like it was a lot of more internal what we wanted.
I see.
Knowing that God had called us, but we wanted to go. And I don't think that we necessarily felt the Holy Spirit on us saying it's time to go. Versus that night, it was very heavy on our hearts. And we felt like, wow, yeah, we have been waiting and kind of dragging our feet, but like eager to. It's kind of it's like we're dragging our feet for God to do it, where I think we just felt like, no, he wants us to do it, and then he's going to meet us there.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the waiting period, right? Because you said that you have been to this conference for 3 times, and the first 2 times you're just there, maybe learning, listening, learning other people's experience. Do you think these 2 years, when you look back, do you think you gain anything, or that like better, maybe better equip you, or like better prepare you for this journey? What do you think?
Yeah, that's when I started. I think that's part of their journey. I skipped out. So. Yeah, I mean, our initial call 12 years ago, my first response to that was to go back to school, like I said. And then after that, we were actually working in the out down Southern California for a while. And that's when we decided to come up here and start working at Crosswalk and start working at the school, just because we want to start gaining some experience where it's more of a full-time thing.
I think for me, I think it was the first year. For me, I was struggling with fear. I was afraid. I wanted to go overseas, but I was afraid. And here I am, a mom. I had 2 kids at the time, pregnant with the 3rd. And I thought, oh my gosh.
Salute to you.
Yeah. I thought, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to my kids? What if God calls us to some country where, it's war, it's turmoil, it's scary. And I've now uprooted my children. I've brought them into this hostile environment. And what if they die? What if someone kidnaps them? I mean, like my mommy mind went to all the worst case scenarios, right?
Yes.
And when I'm sitting here at this conference, that's all I'm hearing is my heart's pounding, and I'm hearing this fear. And then God told me, I felt it. I heard it. He said, it doesn't matter where you live in the world. You have no control over what happens to your children. I can take them away overseas, and I can take them away here in Sunnyvale. And then he said, do I need to show you? And that, like, I was in tears on the ground, just like, you're right, God. Like, I have no control. He's like, you need to trust me. And so I think for me, and it's weird to say because I don't think I've ever experienced it, but it was a miraculous healing of fear. Like, he stripped me down. He took that away. And every now and then, that little, that devil tries to put that back in me. And I say, no, God has it. And so I think that for me, that year was just releasing and letting go and understanding that, no, God, like, I trust you. And I can't change the outcome of what happens to us, but you're going to guide us. And whatever is the outcome, we trust you. And so that was a huge, I think, growth for me. And it's going to continue to be. I'm not saying that it's not going to try to sneak back in there. But I felt it and heard it. And like all the songs were just based on releasing fears. I mean, it was just like kind of God set up to say, you need to let this go. And so, yeah, there was really huge growth in that area for me over that time as well.
All right, so now we are all excited. The third year, you get the message from God. It's like another like traumatic message to you.
Yeah.
Tell us more about like once you decided, right? Okay, now it's time. God, give us the calling. We're going. What is your next struggle? Because I'm sure there's other things you have to think about, right? Because you're all settled down here, being parents of threes. What is the next step? What is the next process that you're going through?
Yeah, so we, that night after that first speaker, we went back to the house, and we had a couple who was with us. They have kids our same age, and they've been walking this journey with us. So they're like, oh my gosh, that was for you. Like, they kind of confirmed it. It's like, God was totally talking to you. So where are you going to go? Let's get out a map. Let's lay it on the table. I mean, seriously, like, this is how it went down. And Mark and I are both standing across this dining room table from each other, like, wow, like, what are we going to do right now? And Mark says, I think, there's a couple of trips that our church is taking this year, some short term. I think it was, what was it? Peru and
the Philippines.
The Philippines, right? And I say, yeah, like, we could do that. We could go check that out and see if that's what God wants us to do or not. But I don't really feel that that's what God wants us to do. And I said, there's been a country that's been on my mind for about a month. And I didn't share it with him. It was kind of randomly popping in and out of my head for weird thoughts, and I didn't know anything about it. And he's across the room, and he looks at me, and he says, it's Thailand, isn't it? And I said, yes. How did, like, the dumb question, right? How did you know that? And then he said, wait a second. Did Thailand come out of my mouth? Because in my mind, I was thinking Cambodia. So he was kind of tossing around with Cambodia for a few weeks. But in the moment when I said there's this country that's been on my mind, he shouted out Thailand. And that was the same country that God had put on, like, I was thinking about for that month. And so we were like, wow, this is really happening. Like, we have to at least explore Thailand, right? Like, I mean, you can't deny that was like kind of God saying, okay, well, now that you're willing to take that first step, I'll just go ahead and show you that I want you to go to Thailand.
Yeah, and so then I think the next part was we were waiting again, once again, silly us, we were waiting for something dramatic to happen. And so we started talking to some organizations that are sending organizations that will send people. And none of them really felt right. And I mean, they were all great organizations, but none of them just felt like a good match for us. And then we were talking to people who were missionaries in Thailand, and we kind of, through this process, we met through a couple missionaries on Facebook and stuff like that. And this was getting on to be September, like the end of summer, September, and we were saying, gosh, we felt this great call back in January. What's the next step? Because we're waiting for God to show up and tell us what to do next. And at some point, I think you said, look, that's it. We're just going to book a trip to Thailand.
Just book it.
Let's just book a trip. I'm going to do some airfare. I'm like, where are we going to go? I don't know anything about Thailand. And you're like, that's it. We're going to go to this town, Chiang Mai. And
We knew one person there.
we knew one person.
We have 2 weeks, but we knew one person. I
We're-
said, I don't care. We're going to go.
We're going to go. We're going to meet two. We're going to meet, even if we just meet those two missionaries and we just walk the streets and pray for people, that's what we're going to do. I said, okay, let's do it. Let's book the trip. So once again, we took the first step. We booked the trip. And then, so that was on a Friday. The following Sunday, we had a guest speaker here at the church who is, Crosswalk is an American Baptist church, and he's kind of the regional American Baptist guy. And so he came and spoke. And so I talked to him. We ended up going to lunch with him, which we never do. And we told him our story, which we never do. And he was like, wow, he's all, have you guys talked to American Baptist International Ministries? And we're like, who's that? American Baptist. And so he goes, yeah, I'll hook you up. And I'm like, okay, great. He's like, I'm going to tell them about you. And so I end up Skype calling this guy on Monday. And I'm thinking to myself, oh gosh, I got to Skype this guy. I'm just going to do it out of politeness to the other guy. I'm just going to do it and see what happens. And I get on the Skype call. And this guy, I love them. They were so relational. They were so they want to know about why we want to go. They were so into our story. They were so in, and just everything that he talked about them just matched up so well. And then I told him about Thailand, and he's like, hey, you know what? He's all, we actually have our director, our Asia director. He's all, we have some missionaries in Thailand. Would you like to meet them? I'm like, yeah, we'd love to meet them. We don't have anything planned for 2 weeks. We got 2 people to visit. He goes, yeah, I'll hook you up. He comes back and says, hey, actually, our director for Southeast Asia, who's based in Pennsylvania, but she said she's going to be out there that same week you guys are. You guys can meet her. You can meet, and they filled up our itinerary, completely filled it up with all these people. And we just sat there and said, it's kind of crazy.
They were actually having a big conference there, and we had to turn it down because we kind of had some of our own plans already. But we went from a place of well, I guess we'll just book this trip and meet these 2 people, and God's got to do the rest. And of course he did, because now we have this regional director who happens to be in Chiang Mai, the same city, at the same week, and introduces us to all of their other ministries that are already currently happening. And so we were just like, God, this is crazy. This is so awesome.
Yeah, we just took that first step, and he starts just filling in the gaps. And that's something I think you can see throughout our story, is how we just took that first step, and God takes care of everything else going on, whether it be the Philippines or what I was doing in work or almost anything. It's just we just have to take that first step and just say, yeah, okay, I'm going to take that first step and do it. And then all of a sudden, things just start happening and doors just start opening left and right, and it's amazing.
God is amazing, because I think a lot of us here, including myself, I would be sitting in church, listening to all of this wonderful experience, sometimes with the message that God gave us, right? And sometimes we have a little calling inside our heart, but we're like, oh, I'm waiting for that dramatic calling experience that I'm 100% sure that God is pushing me out the door, right? And a lot of us may be waiting for that. But from your experience, it sounds like when you have a calling, even though it may sound a very quiet noise inside your heart, just go, just take the first step, and God will take off the rest for you.
Yeah, and I think it's been a journey of finding that balance, right? Because obviously we don't want to just, jump and go, and we don't have any direction at all. But I think in our experience where we've purposefully prayed and sought after it and said, God, is this really what you want us to do? And then had this idea of a first step, when we actually took that first step, and it wasn't just an idea anymore, then God revealed more of our path. And so, yeah, it's just been really this kind of up and down, waiting first step, and just trying to gain knowledge and seek God in the process of it. It's kind of been our journey.
Yeah, and so now where we're at is we are tied in that American Baptist International Ministries is, we in fact just went out there 2 weeks ago to Philadelphia to meet with them. That was our final interview, and we were approved. So now,
congratulations!
Yeah, and that's been a full year since we first started talking to them. It was an application, and we had to write a bunch of essays, and then there were psychological tests and interviews, and seeing a ministry evaluator and all this other stuff. But it's been amazing. It's been a great journey, I think, even for us. Not just about going, it's just about being for us internally. It's been really an amazing journey, and
yeah, I think I didn't really know how the missions process worked before, and so I think now that we're in it and we're like, wow, when we share, it's a lot of work.
Mhm.
It's a lot of work. And some of it's like, oh gosh, we have to write another essay and we have to do another interview. And then there's a waiting period with them. And it's been kind of a frustrating year, to be honest. Like, I'm just like, let's go. We know where we're going. Let's go. And but I've appreciated the process
Mhm.
because I think Mark and I have grown internally. Like, we've grown a lot together, like to each other and to God, and just trying to seek out what is it that God really wants us to do? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What areas could we be seen in? And I think it's revealed to us this process of like having a deeper understanding of who we are in Christ as well. So as kind of a pain that it's been also really amazing. And to finally say, wow, 12 years, we were sitting before an interview in Philadelphia, and I just had this, wow, God, it's been 12 years, and we're finally here. So yeah, I'm excited that we got that stamp of approval because it's been a long wait.
So for all of us who are sitting here, if you have some like encourage words or maybe like some suggestions like what we should do to prepare ourselves for hopefully in the future for the missions, what would you suggest? Pray.
You know, my big thing is
Yes.
just experience God.
Mhm.
Be open to that. God is definitely, the knowledge is necessary, but
Mhm.
the experience is what you remember oftentimes. If that makes sense. It's like you have to read scripture, you have to be on to know all those things, but sometimes I get so into that I don't just walk around and experience God in moments.
Mhm.
And yeah, to me that's the big thing. Just be open to that and to honestly be seeking out and put myself in situations where I'm taking that first step out in faith sometimes. And then God just shows up and starts doing things, and it just blows me away. It's crazy that some of the things that God does that we've seen, because I sit there and you think I'd be used to it by now, but it's really cool to see God just working in people's hearts and God working in people. And oftentimes people just don't even know that they're loved by God. It's like this, they don't know how to experience that. They don't know how to accept it.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's been more, it's okay. You got to show yourself some grace sometimes too. I think my struggle this last 10 years has been how do I love God, love my children, be a mom, right? Like, how do I spend time with God as a mom, as a busy mom? Like, that's been a really hard thing for me. And I'm still trying to figure that out. But I think this year, God has allowed and almost forced me into a season of like, you have to say no to these things. And I'm working part-time, and that also has been helping me. But I think I would beat myself up that I'm like, I'm not praying as much as I should, and I'm not reading my Bible as much as I should. Like, that's been kind of this like shame on me kind of thing to myself. And as much as the knowledge is important, and yes, you need to find a balance in that, like there's grace in that too. Like, God's not going to stop working because you're not doing that. You know, like he's going to keep doing his thing, but it's a little bit hard to connect with him if we're not spending time with him. So I think for me, I've had a struggle of trying to connect and live out life and not be distracted. But when I feel distant, knowing like, oh yeah, I need to make that a priority. When I'm feeling distant from God because I'm not listening, and then I can't hear what He wants to share with me. And so even if it's somehow finding those just few minutes of just intentionally praying with God every day. I know they say it all the time, but it really does make a difference.
Thank
but
you.
also having grace.
I think that is amazing. Thank you so much for the sharing today. And I know that you guys are going to Thailand maybe somewhat about a year time frame. Is that correct?
Yeah, so our next step is receiving training back in Philadelphia in January, and then this next year we'll be partnering with people to assist us in going. Yeah.
Great. Wow. Our best wishes to you all. And we as a church, we definitely will pray for you. And if there's anything we can do, please let us know. It's been an honor being able to have you guys with us today.
Thank you guys so much for having us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been an honor being here too. We're excited to meet with you.
You guys are the first church we shared at.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. We're so special. And also best wishes to your family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
To add on to it, and this is the first time we use my phone to do a video recording. Okay, you can take a look at this is their family. Why don't you introduce your family members? The daughter, the sons.
So yes, our little girl is Sydney. She's 8. The one on the far right, that's Gavin. He's 6. And then the little guy is Colin, and he is 3.
One thing I really want to point out is I like the way their daughter stand and look like a model. Right? I'm not looking at the camera. I'm a model. All right. So I'm going to recap a bit in Cantonese. Okay. 我希望大家可以 take home 嘅咧，除咗你去 missions trip 會識到你將來嘅配偶之外，仲有好多嘢可以聽。譬如舉例，你聽到佢哋就係其實話，大家都係尋求神嘅心意。你 make sure 真係有神嘅心意嘅時候，就算係12年都好 ，you are still there. The calling keeps you there. 如果你即係上個禮拜我同一個正係考慮緊去唔去讀，即係去唔去全時間侍奉，我同佢好強調，你冇全時間 calling 咧，我唔該你，你去進修冇問題。唔該你唔好出嚟累人。咁嗰個喺第一間教會嘅嗰個弟兄。咁點解咁樣講咧？就係冇全時間 calling 嘅時候，你去服侍神係好，但係個 calling keep you there，keep you persevere for Christ。12年唔係短嘅時間 ，but they're there，right？ 咁希望即係弟兄姊妹可以諗清楚，即係平日日常生活入面，我哋點樣去尋找神嘅呼召。第二樣你會聽到就係話，即係兩夫妻一齊侍奉，去同心尋求神嘅心意，神會擺個 unity 喺一個 family 入邊。咁嘅時候咧，你咁先做到。OK， 我見到Alise頭，我唔知點解佢係咪識聽廣東話咧 ？But anyway， 咁嘅時候咧，我哋仲有幾樣嘢就係譬如話missions 啊 ，missions 唔係為咗即係點講喺教會入邊刺激一個氣氛，製造一個好嘅氛圍係其次。重要就係話，你上帝派你去嗰度嘅時候，你要諗住你係俾上帝用，你喺嗰度所成就嘅事係上帝嘅計劃一部分，唔係淨係為咗刺激自己，即係搞好氣氛啊諸如此類。譬如舉例，佢哋去到you guys that's the Philippines or Panama when you guys like you felt like you've done nothing if Philippines right？ 即係我聽到佢哋開初聽到佢哋嘅見證嘅時候，就係話佢哋去到菲律賓嘅時候，見到人哋做到好行 ，OK？ 佢哋好似乜嘢做唔到，誰不知2年之後係當地嘅 local people 同翻佢哋嘅教會講，佢話其實想當年佢哋喺度做 connection。Help them to build up the church, establish the church。咁我希望弟兄姊妹睇到，即係神擺你 missions 嘅時候做緊乜嘢。咁點解會咁樣提？就係其實我哋出年4月，而家有個機會就係我哋會去利物浦。利物浦入邊有8000個華人，計埋illegal嘅11000 ，OK， 得4間教會，4間教會第2間大嘅得40個人。原因其實就係成個8000個華人入邊，淨係得200幾個基督徒。而家當地嗰間教會就係想我哋，佢哋冇人手，佢哋想我哋就係去 make known of the church， 去同嗰度嘅嗰個地區嘅人去介紹呢個教會。咁希望就係點樣咧？就係希望多啲人認識個教會存在嘅時候，佢哋可以繼續做 follow up 嘅工作。我哋唔知點樣做，但係呢個如果我哋繼續去祈禱啊，如果神係俾咗感動我哋嘅，我哋就去做。即係你會睇到佢哋嘅生命，因為有時成日淨係牧師喺度講 calling 啊，講堅持啊，你覺得好似好老作咁係咪？但係你要明白呢個係唔係我哋教會嘅，係真身佢哋都經歷過上帝所分享嘅見證。希望弟兄姊妹從中可以得着鼓勵，好嘛？咁另外咧就係同埋點解我會請阿 Mark 同埋 Alise 嚟到去同我哋分享咧 ？Skywalk 雖然我哋教會細，但係我哋由開波我哋 support 3個宣教士，一個喺 San Antonio 係咪？今個禮拜5晚我講過啦，我哋會同喺巴布亞新幾內亞嗰個華人嘅宣教士，我哋有聯繫。第3個咧就係中國大陸。嗰3個都係我同阿 WK 識嘅 missionary。我希望 Mark 同 Alise 喺呢度係可以由我哋唔知將來我哋即係 financial 點樣係咪教會仍然健在基督教嘅人，但我希望神安排到我哋去認識嘅時候咧，將佢哋當係 Skywalk 你哋每一個由零開始認識嘅宣教士。 你同佢有個關係，由零開始認識，就唔係淨係牧師同嗰啲宣教士有關係，所以牧師話要 support 嘅時候咧，咁你又唔好意思反對，你無啦啦喺度支持，你明唔明啊？我想呢個係 Skywalk 真真正正由零開始，成個會眾都有機會去由零開始認識、去關心、去支持一個關係嘅宣教士。咁將來點樣 support 甚 support 到，我哋做事再算。但係希望係一個好嘅開始，所以希望弟兄姊妹可以即係多啲認識佢哋嚇。咁啊都幾好啊！華人教會 support 第一個嘅宣教士唔係華人嚟嘅，西人嚟嘅，幾特別。OK， 咁希望大家可以即係記住呢樣嘢。你係咪仲錄緊㗎？哎呀死！我唔知你錄緊真係。OK 嚇。係啦，爭啲講啲唔應該講嘅嘢。OK， 好，咁我哋而家今日崇拜咧就嚟到呢度就結束啦。咁我哋once again we give thanks to God for bringing Mark and Alise to among us and share with us their testimony and how God calls them to missions. And I also want you guys to continue to pray to God. I want to say that Carrie did a good job today. I know they have been scared. They have been putting in a lot of prayers. They told me in the past 2 months. I give them like 2 months notice. They keep praying for that, to participate in this ministry, into interviewing Mark and Alise. So everybody in Skywalk, if you would love to serve, talk to us. We will help you. We'll pray with you. And may God use your spiritual gifts to serve in this church, not just to finish the task, but to build up people. All right, today, I hope that testimony is building us up, building up our spiritual life to experience God on a daily basis. All right, let's bow our heads and pray for the Juanes and also pray for us. Dear Heavenly Father, we give